as people walk in, if they miss it, we have some printouts courtesy. Thank you, Troy, for printing some extra copies out. So if anybody in town or you want to pass it along to someone, please do so. I'm Kevin Knockan, representative of LCG. I'm the current chairman and also representative of District 1. We're in District 5 here. We have Brian Champagne here, who is the president of the Lafayette Parish Fire Association. You have your current chief, Troy Lopez, here, along with the president of the board, Mr. Timmy. We're here tonight to educate you on what's coming up on December 8th, what is going to be proposed for the unincorporated areas only. Okay, the city of Lafayette, Scott, Dusson, Carencro, Youngsville, none of those constituents are having an opportunity to vote. Okay, this is strictly for our area, the rural area. So if you don't belong to a municipality or the city of Lafayette, then you're in the right place, because this is what we're talking about: rural fire district and protection for the unincorporated areas. Let me kind of give you a history background. I've been in office for 8 years. Prior to consolidation, when it was the police jury system and Walter Como was the parish president, and you had the city of Lafayette, there was always intergovernment agreements to provide parish fire protection in the unincorporated areas. So nothing has really changed. When the parish had money in the general fund, they always had an intergovernment agreement with Judice, Milton, Youngsville, and all of the small towns to help fight our rural areas, to protect us. And back then, they would also pay for medical calls and everything else. So when consolidation came together, everything stayed the same. We rely on Judice, Milton. Milton has 2 stations, Judice has 1. That's really our 3 true parish fire protection we have, because the other volunteer fire departments are inside of town, like Scott, Dusson, Carencro, Youngsville, and Broussard. So this area here has always relied on all of the volunteers. So you have 7 volunteer fire departments, and you have the city of Lafayette that make up your parish fire protection. Okay? So what one does here that doesn't do there all affects the rate. Currently, where you stand in the unincorporated area, you're at a class 5. Okay? 10 being the worst, 5's in the middle, 3, 2, that's where you want to be. The city of Lafayette enjoys a class 2 fire rating. What does that mean for your homeowners or your commercial business? That means that you pay less insurance because you have the adequate protection, you're near a fire station, a lot of factors come into play. Where we at is a class 5. In 2003, we were a class 5. 2018, we're a class 5, but they come and rate us next month. Okay, they come every 5 years. So every other municipality, including the city of Lafayette, funds their fire departments through sales tax revenue. It's called the general fund. Those towns, and you've been in them, Broussard, Youngsville, they're grown, right? All those businesses, Scott, okay? Dusson's gonna start to get to that level eventually because they're building the front of the road. So the point I'm saying is that the parish at one time had all the money. We had the sales tax revenue, we had the business. Annexation has come in and has taken our sales tax revenue from the parish, okay, which was legally, they could do that. When they consolidated, they didn't consolidate the small towns. They just took the police jury system, our unincorporated areas, and the city of Lafayette, and merged the 2. But everybody else stayed outside. But as far as for annexation, anytime there was a business coming, those towns came in and they scooped it. They scooped it because why? It brought sales tax revenue. Okay? So through the years, the parish's general fund that was relying on sales tax revenue has steadily declined because of the fact that the annexations were taking place. There's nothing we could have done about it. Nothing you can do about it. What you can do moving forward and what I'm proposing in the future is to have a shared revenue, which basically says, hey, if you're going to come and annex some land out here and you're going to come grab Tibbs trailers because they're in an unincorporated area, we're not gonna let that town or the city of Lafayette or any town take 100% of those sales tax revenue. In other words, you should split it 50-50. Because what has happened over the years is they've taken our revenue, but they keep giving that invoice at the end of the month. They take your revenue and you keep getting that bill for services. Take your revenue, you keep getting that bill. Well, the problem is, how is Scott and the smaller towns ever want to support any type of tax for the unincorporated area when they're getting all the services? So it makes it very tough to take care of the parish when you don't have any money and all of the other towns are benefiting from those businesses. So in the future, I'm working on splitting the revenue to stop the bleeding. It's not a total fix, but at the end of the day, we need to make sure that if annexation continues and it's business and sales tax revenue, that they don't take 100% of the revenue from the parish, because we still have to have services and we still have to pay bills. So that's where we got with this fire deal. Revenue decline, we had to balance the parish budget, we had shortfalls, and we got hit with state mandates, which means you gotta pay the court operations, you gotta fund all of these things. These are things that are mandated from the state onto local government and says, by Lafayette Parish, you have to fund it. That is in the tune of about $8.5 million. So long story short, we're around $22 million in general fund when I started 8 years ago. We're down to 12, and then the state hit us with mandates and we pay $8.5 million that we have to pay. And then you're left with about $2 million. And by the time you cut that and pay the things that are not mandated, like volunteer fire departments, that's $500,000. We're down to about $100,000 in the general fund. So if you ask me if you can pave a road or, then it ain't gonna happen. Because you're down, that's how declined we are in the parish general fund. So when you think about this situation, we would not be in it and we would not be asking for a dedicated tax to protect us if we had the sales tax revenue like all the other people, all the other towns. If we had the general fund where it was in the past, it was never an issue. We had the money to take care of Judice. We had the money to take care of the fire. But when you don't have any money and fire department is not a state mandate, and as a parish councilman on the LCG, we have to have a balanced budget or we go to malfeasance in the office. You know, we get hit with mandates. There's only so much we can do. So the purpose of this meeting is to say, we basically have a decision to make as a community in an unincorporated area. And I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I'm here to give you the facts and tell you why we're here. How did we get to this point? Again, remember annexation? They took all the sales tax revenue. That's what funded the fire department. That's what funds everybody's fire department. But everybody else has a healthy general fund. We don't. And then we get hit with state mandates. Okay? So, unfortunately, we're in a situation that we have to come up with a solution. How do we continue to get service, better service, and how do we not lose our class rating so that our homeowners insurance doesn't go up? That's where we at. Any questions about how we got here or why we're here? Just if anybody got a question as far as trying to bring you into why we're here and how we got to this point. So, your first question you might ask me is, how does Scott and everybody else fund their fire departments? They do it through what? The general fund, their sales tax revenue. They don't have a dedicated tax. Well, why do we have to? Because we don't have the general fund money, we don't have the business or the revenue that those towns have. And the fact that we're hit with all of these mandates that we must pay. That's why, and that's how we're here. We don't have any type of dedicated funding. And
sales tax is the only thing that funds general fund?
Yes, sir. All of your millages, like for roads, bridges, and drainage, that's all separate in separate accounts that cannot be spent anywhere else other than those categories. So when you look at your parish property taxes, you'll have it broken down from school board to sheriff to roads, bridges, drainage. All of those are dedicated. So all of the things that are not dedicated, we pay out of the general fund. Example, volunteer fire department, agriculture, 4-H, LSU Ag Center, you know. Those luxury items that we've been able to pay without having to bring up a tax was always paid through the general fund. And that's how that was done. In 2013, myself and several other council members, which I've been going to these Lafayette Parish Fire Association meetings ever since I was elected, and I kept hearing how they were struggling with volunteers and everything else, and I kept looking at the general fund decline, and we did as much as we could. I've made some cuts in some other areas and tried to add money. We've done all kind of things to try to keep it, but I knew it was coming to a head. I didn't want it to be at the last minute. I actually tried in 2013 to try to get something on the books, and it failed. I couldn't get it to the voters. Other council members didn't think that the sky was, they thought we were making this story up and, thought that making us think that the sky was falling, they thought it wasn't. Meantime, I was seeing the struggles of volunteers, I was seeing lack of response, parish equipment, 20-year-old tanker trucks. It's just unbelievable. So 2013, they came in and said, you lost your rating. You went from a class 5, remember you had it from 2003, 2013, PIL, which you can get to the slide, they came in and said, you lost your rating. They got together, the association said, what can we do to save a 5? Last minute, what can we do? Well, you can buy some CBs and some radios for $25,000, and you'll get some points, and he'll go with the points. So we did that. We found $25,000 in the parish budget. We bought CBs and radios, and we stayed at class 5. But when they left, they said, you got 5 years, and we coming back in 2018, and you're going to need to hit some or all of these recommendations in order to keep your class 5. Took the message to my council, took the message to the meetings. What are we going to do? Let's look at a sales tax in an unincorporated area. Went through the state, they ran the numbers. You'd have to go to the state and ask to lift the max to get the money you need to take care of it. So the sales tax was out. Somebody said parish-wide fire protection. Let's just go ahead and do a millage for the whole parish. Sounds great, but the problem is Scott, Broussard, Young's going to do something. They're going to be paying double because their sales tax revenue that they're creating, they're already paying for fire protection. So how are you going to get those people to vote for a parish-wide millage when they got their own fire department in their own town? So you couldn't get those towns to want to support that because it would never work. They have all their own stations. Remember, Judice, Milton are the only ones that are not in a municipality. So this fire department, for the history of it, has relied on whatever funding we could give them and whatever fundraising money they can come up with. And if you look at a map from the Austin area down here, District 5, all the way to the parish line, that's the most vulnerable area we have. It's the most unincorporated area residents we have. That's it. Broussard and Youngsville, no defense to them. I'm not trying to knock them, but they annex so much that they only got 2% unincorporated areas that they have to respond to. They might respond to 110 calls a year. Judice is at 275. Scott's at 500. Duson's in the 280s. So you're putting a strain on this area, and lack of funding, it's just tough. So I tried the sales tax. That didn't work. I tried looking at a parish-wide millage. That would never pass. So the only thing we could come up with was create a fire district. Let's make sure that whatever we do, we have a fire district, and that whatever funding we come up with stays in the fire district. It's not to be spent for anything in the other towns. It's strictly for the equipment, personnel that's going to serve the unincorporated area. So that's how we came up with the fire district and the millage that we're going to propose. So we're at a situation that if this doesn't pass, then LCG is going to have to continue to make those cuts. And at that time, some of these smaller towns are not obligated to respond. They're good farming, in their heart they're going to respond. But the business side of it, they're dipping into their own sales tax revenue to come take care of us in the unincorporated area. And by law, you cannot, the city of Scott and those towns can't spend their dollars in the unincorporated area, just like I can't spend my parish dollars in their town. So there's laws and restraints that prohibit that, okay? That's what we're faced with. We either get it done, or we take the chance that maybe when you're gonna call that 911, you're gonna get a dispatch, but we don't know who's coming. Again, it's not a mandate. We've done it for years through the grace of God and through the money that we have, and the money's not there. So I'm gonna get started with the presentation, and as we go through a slide, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I'd rather get those questions while the slide's hot, and then we can move on throughout if you have any questions. Just to let you know, I do live in an unincorporated area, so I am in the same shoes that you're in, okay? So it's not about trying to push something that it's not gonna affect me. It's gonna affect me the same way it's gonna affect you. Okay?
All right, this is a list of all the chiefs that make up, all the departments and chiefs that make up the Lafayette Park Protection Association. It's also, there's contact information for each chief. If you have any questions that after you leave tonight, please call one of the chiefs. They can answer your questions. If they don't have the answer, they can call one of us, and we'll get them the answer, or get you the answer.
So just to reiterate what I told you earlier, to make sure everybody understands, these departments is what makes up your Class 5 rating. Your Lafayette Parish Fire Protection consists of those 7 volunteer departments along with the city of Lafayette. And just in case you're wondering, the equipment that's here responds in the unincorporated area. Scott has separate, it's all one department, but they have one truck for the parish, one tanker truck for the parish. So when a fire gets called out and it's in the unincorporated areas, they're taking the parish equipment and they're coming out here. They're not taking the city of Scott stuff and going in the unincorporated area unless it's a bad fire and they gotta pull all services. But typically, these towns have separate books. They keep separate books. How many they respond to the unincorporated area and how many respond. Same thing with Brian.
Correct. And just to add one more thing, what I do in Broussard, what Troy does here, what Chad does in Scott, it all affects the parish. So whether one chief's doing everything and the other one's not, it really balances out, because it takes everybody doing everything to make the rating go up. So you can't have one side of the parish doing everything they need to do and the other side not doing what they're supposed to do, or they may be deficient in a few areas because of funding, or because of whatever. That all affects, we don't get any extra, I don't get any extra points if I'm doing things right, or if I'm not doing, if I choose not to do these things, and I'll just let the other departments do it. Well, I'm not. Well, what I'm not doing is gonna affect everybody in the parish. So it's rated as a whole. Each department that has a municipality gets rated individually. So I get rated in Broussard as the city of Broussard, and then, which we did last month, and they'll come back next month and do the parish side of the department. So I have parish equipment that has to have certain things on it, and I have city stuff, 2 separate things, but under one roof. So I just want to get a point across, is it takes all of us to make the parish rating better.
And let me just chime in right quick and make sure you understand something. In the past, the Lafayette Parish Fire Association would get their budget, they would talk to Robert, the Chief Benoit, and they would talk to a few council members, but they were not under any accountability, so to speak. Let me tell you how that's gonna change.
Wait, Brian, real quick. So like if PIL comes in for the parish of Broussard, do you get any points from the city to go to the parish too? Can you offset, if that makes sense?
No, it's 2 separate ratings.
It's strictly, so you can't use
Strictly-
any?
Nope, anything that I do in the city, they rate as 1. Now granted, my training, all that stuff gets pulled over to the parish side, but equipment, trucks, response, it's 2 separate things.
Even though at some point in time, some of your city trucks do go to the parish? You follow what I'm getting at? In other words, like.
And I'll tell you one example, when I had my city rating, we're required to roll 2 pumpers in an aerial to all structure calls within the city. We had a parish call that we rode 2 pumpers in an aerial, 2. It was 1 street out in the parish from the city. We have a subdivision that's city, and another subdivision next to it that's parish. They rolled those trucks, they rolled my city trucks, in the parish, and we get gigged for it on the rating, because we took all of our equipment outside of the city limits, so to speak, okay? Was it far? No, it was one street over, but that's how the rating looks at things. Same thing as if I roll just my parish equipment in the city, they say, well, why are you not rolling the city equipment? So they'll gig you on that. There's a lot of things that go into play, but truck response is real big. For those of us that have a city and a parish, we have certain equipment we have to roll in the city, certain equipment we have to roll in the parish, and there's no fine line. It's city equipment, parish equipment. You can't mix them up. So we gotta play by their rules. If you choose not to play by their rules, they'll say, fine, you don't have to participate in this, but you're gonna be a class 10 and you'll pay more insurance. Okay, so it is what it is.
What I was getting to is that with the new fire district, there's a fire board. Who's the fire board? Fire board is the 9 council members that are councilwomen that sit on the current council today. That is different than what you had in the past. Was it good or bad? It's a good thing, because now everyone is held accountable. Every one of those fire departments will be held accountable. They won't report to Mayor President Robideau. They're gonna report to the 9 council members. If the council, if you go out on December 8th and vote to split the council, if you're in support of that for better parish representation, then that new parish council will oversee the rural fire district. So the rural fire district created not only a geographical outlined area, but it created a board. So the board is gonna hold every department accountable, meaning, hey, this tax passed, we implementing a plan. How many calls are we going to? How many calls does Scott go to? How many calls did Judice go to? Is the personnel hired? So you're gonna have accountability in that, okay? You're gonna have your council members overseeing to make sure that the funding, the response, and everything is running consistent from top to bottom. No reason if this passes that we should have any department lacking. The funding would be there. Okay, so you're gonna have accountability. So that's who's in charge of the money, is the fire district board, which right now consists of District 1 through 9. Okay? If it splits moving forward, then my district would become District 2, and I would have the Judice area along with some of Scott. I would be running for your parish councilman's representation in the Judice area if the council splits. If it doesn't, it stays 9 and I'll stay where I'm at. That's how it goes. But that's who's in charge of making sure that your fire department money in the rural district area is accounted for, spent properly, and to make sure that we're taking care of services.
Alright, like I said, there's only 3 fire stations that are actually in a parish. Every other one in the parish is in a municipality of a city. You have Judice with 1 station, Milton has 2 stations. Those are the only 3 fire stations in the parish. So when PIO comes in, they look at fire stations, they only count the ones that are in the parish. They don't count the other ones, because they're inside of a city. Even though, you know, they look at the trucks that are in those stations, and they count the trucks, they don't count the stations. PIL, we've said that probably 1,000 times already tonight. They are it's Property Insurance Association of Louisiana. They're out of New Orleans. They are an entity made up of insurance people. And they adopt these criteria that fire departments have to follow to get a insurance rating. The better your rating, the cheaper your insurance.
That's the bad guys in the room. You wanna know why we gotta do this and why you gotta fund it and why your fire department's gonna have X, Y, Z, top to bottom? It's because they come in and say, well, we changed policies. So this year, in order to get X amount of points, you're gonna have to do this now, and do this, and do this, and do this, and do this. If you don't participate by their rules, you go to a class 10. If you don't hit their markers, then you potentially lose your class rating from a 5 to a 6 or a 7. So we've been fortunate, again, go back 2003, 15 years, these fire departments have done all that they can do with the little money they got and have been able to maintain that rating for us for 15 years. So those point scales that he's about to go over, that determines your class right there. So you see class 10, that's the highest, that's the max. Now, some insurance companies say, hey, you get to a class 7, well, that's gonna be the highest rating that we're gonna charge. So to them, a 7 is equal to a 10, you know, and all insurance companies are gonna be different, you know. All of them are different. Some of them depend on how close you live to a fire station, how close you are to a fire hydrant, and don't fool yourself. The fire hydrants you see in an unincorporated area, that is not for fire protection. That's for Water District North or the Water District South to test the lines, and that fire hydrant, and to flush them. It's probably what more than likely feeds the subdivisions in our unincorporated area. If a fire truck and Troy and his staff hooks up to that thing, one, they're not supposed to by law because they don't want them to, and number two, it would bust all the lines in that area. So we're relying on tanker trucks.
And we've been told not to use those hydrants. Like, do not connect to them, you're not for fire protection, etc. So we know that those hydrants are not there for us to use in the event of an emergency. When PIL comes in, they give you so many points per item that they rate. The more points you get, the lower your class rating. As you can see, class 1 is 90 or more points, where a class, say 9, you get 10 to 19 points, almost 20. So again, we're 5, so the more points you get, the better your rating.
And let me just tell you, he says we're 5, we're really a 6.
We are 50.83. So we're less than 1 point from a 6.
Remember they
5 years ago.
They came in 5 years ago in 2013, and we barely saved the rating because of the CBs and radios. But when they're gonna come in, they're gonna say, you haven't done anything. So we know for sure whether this proposal passes or fails, we're gonna be at a class 6, at least for either 1 year, if this passes, or if it doesn't pass, we're stuck at this for 5 more years. Which means, what does it mean for your home or your business? You'll be paying higher insurance based on a class 6 for the next 5 years. If it passes, you can call PIL and say, listen, we just got a millage pass, we have a fire district, will you consider coming in and give us a re-rate? And as long as we can show significant changes, they'll come back in. They can look at the plan, they can look at what we have, and then they can re-rate us. And if that happens, then we can retro back to a 5, and if we put things in place, the main goal here, people, is to get to a class 4. I wanna have the same quality of life and the same good rates that the city of Lafayette has. They're a class 2, we're not gonna get to a 2. But if we can get to a 4,
Right.
that's where we need.
So this is a recap of what PIL found in 2013 when they came in. Remember, we said earlier, they came in, they rated, we lost the rating, we bought some radios, added some dump sites within the parish, got a few points in a few categories, and they came back in. So there's 2 sets of numbers up here. The actual rating, and when they came back to do the re-rating or the retroactive. So in communications, which is handling fire alarms, we originally got 5.79 out of 10. Fire department, we got 21.9 out of 50. Water supply, 19 out of 40, 19.10 out of 40. So water supply, not too high because of what we just talked about. Those hydrants that are not in the parish, those hydrants are not for us to use. They actually, if it wouldn't be for the tankers, it would definitely put a hurt on the rating. Your divergence, PIL says your fire department and your water supply have to be in line. You can't have a fire department that's way up high and a water supply that's way down low, and vice versa. So your divergence is the math they do to bring your fire department and your water supply in line with each other. So after they rated, we got 46 points. Well, that's clearly a class 6. We lost the rating. They gave us some recommendations of what you could do to gain it back. again, we went to the council, we were able to secure about 25,000, we bought all these radios and some other stuff, and the radios were the main thing.
Those radios stayed where in the box?
They pretty much, we didn't need them, no, we already had radios on both sides of our hip.
So they come to the council and say, spend 25,000 on CBs and radios that we're probably gonna keep in the box,
Correct.
okay? Or let the constituency go to a class
But it
6.
was worth 25,000 because it saved everybody in the
It saved
parish.
everybody in the parish for
lots-
another
a lot more than
5 years.
25,000. You know, so it was worth the investment in one aspect. So they came in, we bought the radios, they came back in. They gave us 8.92 out of 10 for fire alarms, 22.26 in fire department, 21.53 in water supply, which gave us a total of 50.85. Remember, 49.99 is a class 6, so we were less than 1 point from being a class 6, but it put us in the class 5 rating, so we were able to leave insurance rates alone for the last 5 years. Now, we know insurance rates haven't stayed the same, but that's from other means, flooding and storms and things of that nature. You know, we all know that, but and the insurance increases did not go up because of the fire rating. They went up for other things, and if we would have lost it, it would have gone up even more. So we're able to keep it at an average for 5 years by keeping the class 5.
And you gotta remember, insurance rates are gonna go up. Some people saying, Kevin, my insurance goes up all the time anyway. Yeah, but it goes up for different reasons. As you know, when we have hurricanes in the area, and I only know that because my father worked for Farm Bureau Insurance for 30-something years. Anytime hurricanes hit Louisiana or hit Texas, those insurance companies pay out so much in claims that you can get ready. The next year, your insurance is gonna probably go up based upon how much they had to pay out, you know? But you don't want that combination along with losing your fire class rating and having a double whammy. You know, we live in the South, hurricanes of every year can hit us, you know? So that's one of the things. The other part on that slide that's important is the water. How many tanker trucks, how old are tanker trucks?
We have 7, each department has 1, and they were bought in stages, so the oldest ones are around 20 years old, the rest are about 17, 18 years old. They were bought, 1 year we bought so many, and the next year we bought a few more, so.
So you got 20-year-old tanker trucks. And I believe there was a fire not long ago, and they went to jump in the tanker truck.
Mine broke last night, I called me to get it to.
Okay, all right.
Mine's in the shop.
Some of these repairs are anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000, $20,000, okay? The parish has not been able to help these guys. We pay them what we can. I'm a strong advocate for the fire department and the services and what they do. But at the end of the day, they're relying on the fundraisers and the fatal doors and everything else to help offset those things. And the tanker trucks, I mean, you just heard last night, he's got one that's broken. I mean, that's bad. I mean, you're relying on that tanker truck, and you got 20-year-old equipment. So there's needs for capital improvement, but there's no funding to get us to that level.
So wait, I have a question.
Yes,
So if I call for a fire, there's a fire, the only water I'm gonna give is the water from that tanker truck, and when the water's out, it's bad luck for me?
We're gonna go.
They're gonna have two. They're gonna bring
If it's
all
a
of
major
them.
call, we're
It's
gonna
out,
bring,
it's out.
we're gonna
Yeah.
bring as many of those, we have 7 in the parish,
Get your
so
garden hose.
we often call everybody and we shuttle water to the fire.
So
And
what's
we
the
have to go,
fire hydrant use?
It looks pretty. It's because when the unincorporated area subdivision started popping out, Water District North and South had to get the water there. They didn't have the infrastructure like the city of Lafayette had, where those fire hydrants in the city of Lafayette were designed to put out fires. These out here are designed to basically flush the lines and make sure that those subdivisions have water.
If they flush.
The water lines that they put in there are not big enough to
I
hook
wanna get the
up
water
to,
department.
you know, a fire department.
but they look pretty and they give you a
Not
false
all
sense
of
of
them.
security.
Right.
You think, oh, I got a fire hydrant right there, I have all the water I need. Well, that's a false, I'd say it's a false sense of
I thought
security.
the same thing. I got one in front of my subdivision. I said, I'm
There's
good.
one right around the corner from where
Yeah.
I live, oh, there's a fire hydrant
Yeah.
right there.
But they do use them to fill up the trucks. Because think about it, if you don't have a fire hydrant to fill up a truck, where are you getting the water?
You're getting the water from,
You're
well,
not getting a garden
We
hose
used-
to fill up a
well,
truck.
you're not getting it from the fire hydrant that's in that yard. You're gonna
Most
bust
of the time, I mean, when I used to be in the fire department, we were,
We-
and it
we-
wasn't to fight the fire, but it was to
Uh,
fill up the truck.
Over the last year,
They shut you
the
down.
last 2 years?
2 years when they gave us a letter.
Is it 2
Yeah.
years? That's
2
what I
years.
was looking, that's
Yeah,
exactly
we
what
got
I was
the-
going with that.
We got with Bill Neef,
Uh,
because you and I and Troy and Chad.
We got
called
letters
the water
from their
district
attorneys
office.
saying,
Don't use them.
Don't use
you
them.
better not use them.
So then how are the trucks getting filled now?
At their station, Scott's
having
gonna
to
fill
go-
the tanker trucks, or they gotta go drive to.
As whenever Flowchem burnt, they went to Scott, city of Scott and filled up and was going back and forth. And actually, I think they were going to do some.
At the,
As well.
water towers.
And
towers.
we were dropping the water towers at significant levels, so we had to keep moving locations to try to keep filling the tankers up. So that's the facts, you know.
So we need tanker trucks that work. We need some things.
How much does a tanker truck cost?
About 275, given that ballpark.
275,000. I got 100,000 in the general fund.
Basic,
On
very
the-
basic.
I have the truck.
Yeah.
So over the last 15 years, this is kind of the history
That's
of
where
where
you're
the
gonna see
ratio's
all your
going.
decline.
And we can see what areas are declining and why. 2003 in alarms, we got 7.91.
Can they restrict?
They came in 5 years later, we dropped a little bit, 2.5, 7.54. In 13 they came, we dropped quite a bit, but we were able to secure those radios, we gained some points, so we got 8.92. Your fire department, this is where we've seen the, the biggest decline, and it's an area that we haven't been able to recap yet. Fire department in 2003, we got 25.48 out of 50. 2008, 23.51, 21.9 in 13, and then after they came back in, and we got those points, 22.26. A lot of that is the decline in people wanting to volunteer. People have jobs, and we require so much training. Same amount of training that the city of Lafayette guys get is mandated for the volunteers as well. It's impossible for a volunteer to get as much training as a paid guy, but that's what they rate us on. Water supply, 8.62 in 2003. We went up a little bit in 2008. We did some stuff with the tankers. 19.1 in 13, and then we added some shuttle sites, what we call some sites that we can bring the tankers into to shuttle the water. We added some of those in 13 for the retrograde, and we got a few points for that. Again, you can see total rating wise, 51.13 down to 50.85. So we're barely a 5. If we lose any more points for anything else, which
You're gonna lose.
we more than likely, I can almost guarantee that, we're gonna go to a class 6. So when they came in, after they left, they said, these are some things you can do to keep you 5 or to improve your rating. They said you need to increase the number of personnel that respond to the fires. In other words, increase your volunteers. Add additional service truck locations. Add 15 stations. Well, we know 15 stations is a huge capital outlay project. No one has enough that type of money, so that really wasn't doable anyway. Add additional 24-hour staffing to assist the volunteers. Increase training. Increase on-duty personnel. Conduct pre-plans in the rural areas. Start inspecting and maintaining fire hydrants. Well, those hydrants are not ours. We can't do it. So we can't gain no points there because they're not our hydrants. We're not allowed to even mess with them. And expand public fire control, which is our public ed type program.
So the real question is, did we do any of that? Did we do one thing out of there in 5 years?
We didn't do any
The answer is we didn't do
because we had no funding. Every one of them required funding, and when this came out in 2013, these results came out, we went to the council. We were already talking with Kevin and Jay, and they understood why these things were the way they were.
Again, the only reason I understand this is because, one, if you're active in the community, and number two, if you're an elected official, and there's different liaison meetings you go to, but I got assigned to the police and fire, so I went in open-minded. I was just like you, I was dumbfounded with all of these regulations and how everything works. I'm going, wow. From the outside, you don't realize what these departments and these men and these volunteers put themselves through, and just how important it is in our community to have that fire protection. We take it for granted. You dial 911, dispatch calls, we take it for granted every day that somebody's showing up. But when I started realizing, they don't have to show up. And if they're not funded and they don't have the revenue to hire volunteers, to equip the fire trucks, have tanker trucks, this community's in a bind. So I can speak to the fact that in 2013, I got serious and I tried to go get a vote. You have to give 6 votes to get into a public vote, like to cast your vote on the ballot. It failed 5-4. It was myself, Jay Castile, Councilman Boudreaux, and I had Brandon Sheldon at the time. The other 5, District 5, District 9, and the others, I forget who's all in, they voted no. So it didn't even get a chance to go to you guys in 2013 to present this. We presented this in front of the council and we failed 5-4. So it died. So then,
And I can tell you, the attitude was, it's not that big of a deal. Y'all making more of it than it is. The sky's not falling,
yes.
et cetera, et cetera. That's all these things that the ones that voted against were telling Jay and Kevin. So their hands were tied. So at that point, it was dead.
How much does it cost to train one volunteer?
Depends. I mean, a lot of our training can be done at our training center in Lafayette. It's just a matter of getting that volunteer to go across the parish to do that.
Well, yeah, man,
But if
hours
you-
personnel.
Yeah, it depends on, I can send people to LSU and get trained, and it costs me a couple $100 to send them there, plus the lodging and everything else, or we can try to do it local and in-house. So we've gotten asked that question before, and I don't have a set in stone number of how much it costs to train one fireman. Because we try to offer a lot in-house. We have a training center that will offer training for us as well. That's provided by the city. However, it's, for me, my guys, it's to leave Broussard and go to Carencro to get some training and then back again. So it's not next door, so to speak. So it's become an issue as far as using the training center.
So when we got the new council, when Liz Webb and Ned Cook, Pat Lewis came aboard, one of the first things I tackled them was saying, we need to take a look at how we operate our fire department in the parish. My job, I spend 90% of the time dealing with the city of Lafayette. But my constituency is 80% unincorporated area. So there's not a whole lot of focus going on in the parish. So I had to go to them and say, hey, take your brain off the city of Lafayette for a second. These people in the unincorporated area are desperately in need of some type of revenue for fire protection, because we're not going to be able to rely on the parish general fund now and in the future to take care of these people. So I'm asking you to do your homework. I'm asking you to join, hold my hand, let's go to these meetings, ask the questions. And then we got it passed just recently, 7-2, to get it on the ballot.
Is the deconsolidation issue gonna affect this one way or another?
I think they're focusing so much on this deconsolidation issue that they're missing the boat on this one. And I think if we get the facts and we go out as a community and talk facts and talk knowledge, I think we have a real good chance of protecting ourselves. You gotta remember, when you're in an unincorporated area, you only pay one set of property taxes. Parish, right? If you got annexed into Scott or the city of Lafayette, you're gonna be paying 2 sets of property taxes. You're gonna pay a city of Lafayette property tax and a parish property tax. what you're gonna pay for this millage here is cheaper than you ever getting annexed into the city of Lafayette, because you're gonna have to pay double. And then you gotta follow Lafayette's codes, and you gotta follow all of this other stuff. So I kinda like living in an unincorporated area, and what this thing's gonna do, it might cost us a little more, but at the end of the day, we're gonna be self-sufficient. You know, there would never be any reason that you would wanna go into the city of Lafayette, because now you would have the police, you got the sheriff protection, now you got fire protection, you know, so you have a little bit more leniency in the unincorporated areas than you would in the other towns. So I think if this passes, then not everybody in unincorporated areas would feel like, hey, let me go get annexed by Lafayette. Well, what services you gonna get in Lafayette that you don't already have here? The only difference is we're secure in fire protection, where if we don't do anything, then at that point, you're gonna probably wanna be annexed just to save your insurance, right? You see what I'm saying? That's the catch-22 that we hear. So they came up to the table, I showed them the 2013 recommendations, and it passed 7-2. I think the only two people that voted against it was District 5 and 9. The majority of us, we passed it 7-2. I'm gonna do this one here because one thing I wanted to be transparent in the community was, what does a 10 mil look like? What is that gonna equal on my property taxes? How much is that gonna cost me a year versus potentially what the insurance could cost you? So here's a slide from Conrad, the tax assessor. Tax assessor's office came straight from him. So we all know, right, that you have a $75,000 homestead exemption. So those people that have property value less than $75,000 or less, they're not gonna be paying any taxes, which they currently don't pay anyway. But they go vote, right? So it looks like, well, that ain't fair. But at the end of the day, if they lose their fire rating, they might not have to pay a tax, but they still have to have homeowners insurance. So they're gonna pay one way or the other. They might not pay a property tax, but if it fails, they're gonna pay higher insurance.
Well, those people are crazy not to vote for this because they're gonna get free services for nothing.
Correct.
I mean,
Right. So I'll use me as an example. My house is assessed after homestead exemption around $272,000. You can go to the website and you can look at it. So what does that equal? What would I pay? How much is my property tax going to increase to have protection and dedicated service for all eternity? I'm going to fall between this 175 and 275. So I might be paying about $225, $250 a year is what it's going to cost me to have fire protection. Okay, so if your property's value anywhere between there, this slide's going to show you what potentially your annual cost is or what potentially it would cost you per month. And that's what this slide's about. Here's the next scale here, and this was given to us by PIL as a reference of potentially where your insurance could go, how much the increase can be or the decrease depending on your rating, okay? So keep in mind, every insurance company is different. I'm not here tonight to tell you that your insurance is going up $5,000, $3,000, $1,000, or maybe it only goes up $60 a year, okay? We're not gonna know the true number, okay? So for class 5, where we're at here, that's where we're at. If we go to a class 6, potentially could be 11% increase. If we go to a class 7, 21%. If we can go to a class 4, which the funding for this thing should get us to a 4. It might take us 2 or 3 years by the time you implement the plans, but potentially in the next 4 or 5 years, we should be able to get to a class 4, and that's around a -32. So you potentially can save 32% on your homeowners, just depending on your class, okay?
hey,
So-
Kevin, I can tell you, I did a little homework on mine before I came. If we jump to a 7, my annually insurance is gonna jump up to $230 for the year.
Yeah.
Is what mine will jump up to.
Yeah. So everyone's different. So for example, let me tell you what happened with mine. It goes by how far you are from a fire station, all these things, right? So, I'm with, it's a weird name.
ASI.
No, it would, I checked it again, ASI, and then I'm with another company. Well, when they went to run my rate, that company wouldn't allow them to change it from a 5 to a 6 or whatever. So they priced me with Safeco. You heard of Safeco Insurance Company? Okay, so Safeco at a class 5 to a 6 was a $4,000 a year increase. And if it went to a 7, it was so it was about a $2,500 increase from a 5 to a 6 and about a $4,000 increase from a 6 to a 7. That's what Safeco, okay? Some people's insurance are gonna change. Like I said, it may cost you $30 more a year, may cost you $1,000, may cost you $500. It's gonna depend. I'm not here to tell you and scare you and say, oh, your insurance is going up $3,000. No, I'm not here to say that. It's gonna change. It's gonna vary on your coverage, how much your house is worth, how far you are from a fire station. All of these factors take into play. Okay. The thing that I take most importantly is what is it worth to me? So if my insurance goes up only $30 or it goes up $100, I still don't have a guarantee that the fire department's coming. So I can say, well, I'm gonna vote no for this because my insurance is only going up $30. I'm gonna let it drop. I don't care. The bigger picture is the fact that these volunteers in the fire department Judice will not get the funding. And if they don't get the funding, they solely gonna have to rely on keeping this place alive with the fatal dope. And not only Judice, but for other people, for me, as a constituent and a taxpayer, if my insurance goes up $50, but the tax costs me $225, I'd rather pay the $225. It may cost me $100 more a year in taxes, but at least I know that I got a peace of mind that someone's gonna show up and that these volunteers are gonna be taken care of and they're gonna have the right equipment and we'll have protection. So I can't tell you what your insurance is gonna be. That's
Homeowner's insurance only covers your house. Fire department does more than put out fires.
correct.
Exactly.
Getting a wreck on the way home, your kids trapped in the fire.
Absolutely. No, I agree. So that's what I'm saying. If it goes up $30 for you, goes up.
Quality of life.
If it goes up $50 for me, or if
My
I'm with
house might not catch on
Safeco,
fire, but I might live in a ditch with my
Right.
kids. I wanna
if
know
I'm with
somebody's gonna get me
Safeco,
out.
I'd be getting out of Safeco because that's a $3,000 or $4,000 increase. Some people might be with Safeco, some people might not. Your insurance company, some of them you could say, hey, move me to a 6 or 7 to compare. Some of them say we can't do that until the rate actually hits. So you're in limbo, okay? All I know is for peace of mind, in my history of studying this for 8 years, this is the most important thing that we have to do is take care of our homes.
He brought up Rex or whatever, so I know this is for fire. We stressed that the last time. What happens if they have Rex? Are they gonna be able to respond? on
So
this
this is,
Wreck is still considered a fire incident.
What incidents are not considered
Medical
fires?
calls.
Is that it? Strictly medical
Yeah.
calls?
yeah, so for example,
That's a Canadian ambulance function. Although the fire department does it, we do it to help, do it because, we like, enjoy helping the community.
yeah,
That's an ambulance function.
best way I can put it is,
Everything else will be covered.
best way I can put it is think of it this way. They rate us on the fire. They don't rate us on medical calls. They don't rate us on those other things. So for this rural fire district, I wanted to make it very specific. We need fire protection. I don't want to get this tax passed and there's funding and all of a sudden money's walking out the door to help offset medical costs. That's not what we're here for. This is for fire.
See,
Okay?
that's one thing I misunderstood though, that Rex, investigations, false alarms.
Those are
I mean,
still
'cause
considered fire department
Yeah.
calls. It's why we here, so to speak.
So
We
anything,
never was put here to do medicals. That was the ambulance job. We just, some kind of way got involved and
So
do it now.
the funding is strictly for fire calls. Okay? That's what LCG, that's where your tax dollars are gonna go for. I'm not saying that Troy and Judice can't go respond to a medical call, but they're gonna know through the board, you can run all the medical calls and take care of your community, because that's what you should do, but you're just not gonna get compensated through the dedicated millage. You're only gonna get compensated for fire calls. But if this department says, we love the community and we're gonna go show up for medical calls that's fine. Timmy, Troy, whoever in the future is the chief, they're gonna know that you're only gonna get compensated for responding to fires.
Is that, what departments are running medical calls and what aren't right now?
The ones that are not, Carenco don't,
Judy?
y'all don't, Judice don't, does do some? I
No.
don't think they,
I don't think anybody does.
Scott runs them in the city of Scott, not in the parish. And everybody else runs them.
And then again, those departments might change. If this passes and they're getting the funding that they need to take care of fires, maybe the fatal dose and the other stuff might free up some money where they can go ahead and continue that service. Again, that's not gonna be my hammer.
So that can't be mandated through anything like that.
Well,
Only
We can
reason
just
why
say,
is if
we can
you're
just
gonna
say that
have-
we're not gonna fund any, we're not funding any medical.
So when we did fund medical calls, let me tell you what happened. And I'm from that town, I love the town. But they responded to every freaking call and they got paid for it and it sucked the parish general fund dry. So it becomes, if we had to pay for medical calls and fire, we had to, when we had to make cuts, that's the first thing that we had to cut. We had to cut the medical costs. Scott was blowing it up. I mean, we're getting extra $100,000 a year just responding
When
to
we get to the
medical
slide on cuts, you'll see that they took, the first year, they took a huge cut because that was cut out of the.
So does everybody understand this slide right here? Anybody have a
I do
question?
understand this, but I'd like one thing clarified. You brought up that wrecks are covered because it's under fire. I was in a wreck in 17 where I was trapped in the vehicle and broke my back. And Acadian Ambulance was wonderful. They showed up and the paramedic got in my vehicle with me from the other side, but they couldn't get me out.
They're fire.
It was the volunteer fire department that got there first.
Yes.
Even
That's why
though
we
he
say
was in
Recs
Lafayette,
are our,
yes.
they're.
So
they're
that
our
is still
function.
covered?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's a fire department function. The only
Okay.
thing it's not is, and when we respond
Having
to,
chest pains.
to a wreck,
Yeah. so
although
that's
we
medical.
do, when we respond to a wreck, although we help with medical on the wreck, we're there for the wreck itself, the scene safety, the fluids leaking, to extricate. We're there for fire department functions, and we just happen to help Acadian while we're there. So
But if
that,
you have paid guys there now that have the training for it, I mean, just my opinion, I know it's not covered on it, but in my opinion, every department should start running medical calls.
that's one of the things, we won't mandate, that'll be up to each individual chief. I mean, they,
Even if it's just the paid guys on.
Right.
Will you be able to use those guys that y'all paying to run medical calls?
There you go. Cause they have the training and everything else, but then you
It's
take
just
them
a
away
perk to the
from
community, but y'all the ones paying them.
Yeah.
they, I would foresee that they would allow them to go, it just wouldn't, they wouldn't, when we get to the budget stuff,
I think
You
you
won't
you're
get-
gonna be
you won't
allowed
get
to
any-
go,
you
but
won't
you're not
get
gonna
any
get any
credit
compensation for it.
for
You're not
the
gonna get
call
any credit for the
itself.
call.
Which that's understandable,
So-
I mean.
There's a limitation of.
Right, I mean, there's only so much. And again, on this insurance slide, before we move on, my quote was 3 and 4, 5,000, but that was with Safeco because my current vendor could not give me what it would be. Because there's some insurance companies make you wait for the class to hit. So I priced it separate from where I'm at, and that's what Safeco's rate was at. Anywhere from a $3,000 to $5,000 increase. So remember, your insurance are gonna be different.
Okay, it shows right here, last evaluation, December 2nd through 6th of 2018, and the election is on December 8th. So they'll lower raise the class for a while and then bring the insurance down again.
Right, like I said earlier, so when we lose a rating, we're gonna be a 6. You're gonna be
It'll
a
go up
6
for a little while,
it'll go up for a year.
a year.
If we know December 8th that this passes, they're gonna get a phone call from us right away to say, hey, it just passed.
Okay.
So when can you come back and re-rate us? Then again, gotta keep in mind, it passes in December 8th, you gotta wait a whole nother year before you start collecting that revenue.
collect it.
Okay? You gotta wait a whole year. That's what was so aggravating in 2013, that if we would've got it done by 14 or 15 or 16, we would've start seeing better service, you would've started seeing more volunteers, you would've had a
It
better,
wouldn't have gotten so.
it wouldn't have gotten so bad. So now if it passes on December 8th, you got at least a year before you start collecting that
To
money.
see the results.
So you're not gonna, they'll come back and re-rate it, but you ain't gonna get that class 5 or 4 until a year or 2 down the road. Again, if it don't pass, you're stuck with a 6 for 5 years, or a 7, depending on how bad they rate us on the points, because we didn't do anything.
One question.
Yeah.
I live right on the outskirts of the city of Lafayette. Would it be my benefit to be annexed? Would I come out better than staying in the parish?
That's a good question. You're on the line, you're on the fence is what you're
Right
telling
on
me.
the line.
Okay. So what was told to me, inside the city of Lafayette, believe it or not, there's pockets right off of Johnson Street that are unincorporated areas. Like in down, like right by like Pete's and all, I mean, right in the core. Well, they're refusing to be annexed into the city of Lafayette. Why? Think about it. Why wouldn't they want to be in the city of Lafayette? Anybody?
I can tell you, but I already know.
Lafayette's cool.
That's one. Main reason they don't want to be in it.
They don't wanna pay.
They don't want to have to pay their parish property taxes and the city of Lafayette taxes when they get the services
As a city resident.
as a city resident. Okay? That's why those people are not going. So for you, you have to ask your question. If the tax costs you $100 more a year or $200 more a year, I think that's probably cheaper than you getting annexed into the city of Lafayette and having to pay Lafayette taxes,
Yeah, but
Plus
what
the
about
parish
the
tax.
2 rating?
the 2 rating.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would benefit from a class 2. That does bring up a good point. I don't know then.
It's what's important to you.
I guess it's what's important to you, but when you fall under the city of Lafayette, there are definitely different rules, regulations, and things like that, you know? For me, the city of Lafayette will never come get me. They're not gonna come get anybody right here. So even if they did, you know, that's the other thing that we keep forgetting. One of the solutions was just have every town annex all the unincorporated areas. It'll never happen, one, because you can't force annexation. Number two, if those towns come and start annexing all of us, it's gonna put a strain on their current class rating, it's gonna put a strain on their fire department and their police department, because now they got more rooftops, which means they got more services and more responses. So then that town's all of a sudden gonna be, guess what? They're gonna be in the same situation we're in. Uh-oh, where are we gonna get the extra funding? You know, so annexation of the whole parish is not the solution. I think this is the right.
I was just asking, he's in what's considered a P zone, so automatically Lafayette responds to him along with the volunteer, so he could probably argue to his insurance, say, yeah, even though I'm in the parish, I get that fire service and could probably keep it down and
Yeah.
not,
But I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not gonna steer you one way or the other, but you do bring up a good point. You would benefit from the class 2, but how much is the class 2 versus how much the property taxes with the city of Lafayette plus the parish property taxes, I don't know.
The required tools and equipment on each truck that we're required to respond with is about 50,000 per apparatus. That's the air packs, that's the hose, that's the nozzles, that's all the other equipment that we have to put on. One thing we did add was to outfit a fireman. This is pretty much what I pay in Broussard to outfit a fireman. Gear is about $2,500 a set. That's the pants and jacket. Your helmet's about $270. Boots are about $300. Your Nomex hood, which is the hood that covers our ears and necks, is about $95. Gloves are about $65. Safety vest is about $35. This little pager is about $560, believe it or not. And this radio is $3,200. So you're looking at about $7,000 per fireman to outfit them with this equipment. And this is basic.
I was about to say, that's on the basic, and if you see this slide in the thing right here, I mean, it can range from 7,000 to 11,000. I mean, if you need thermal camera, there's so much, this technology, right? So the 7,000 is a good base price to get you started, you know, as a fireman. You writing some good stuff? I just want to know.
I just filed my deadline.
You have a deadline? I didn't get to proofread. I'm just playing. He's with the advocate.
Yeah.
So in 2016-17, we took our first round of cuts
You got
from the parish government. We were able to keep Judice, Milton, and Dusong at their same level. We were able to stop any cuts that year with their paid staff. The little bit of paid staff that LCG was paying, we were able to secure that. Broussard, Karen Grove, Scott all took a 36% cut. That was both one part-timer that they were paying for us, and they were also, we got cut on operational expenses. Scott took a 62% cut, as we talked about a few minutes ago, when they said no longer are we gonna be allowed to bill extra for medical. That was cut out, and so that's where Scott took that 62% cut. We also took a $140,000 cut across the board that we would split. They would give us $140,000. They called it the volunteer assistance. We would give one department $80,000, and the others would get 10. And the next year, the next department would get 80, and the others get 10, and so forth. So you knew every 7 years you'd get the 80, and you could take that money and put a down payment on a truck or do some type of project that was on a large scale.
So just to show you how bad things have gotten, we used to cut them a check, full amount, right? Now they're getting paid quarter, and not at the beginning of the quarter,
That's gonna be at the end.
at the end of the quarter. And most of these departments, their insurance is due first of the quarter.
So
That's because the revenue's not coming in
like it used
like
to.
it used to. And for Judice, a couple of years ago, before 16-17 at the Fire Association meeting, we found, I cut the city of Lafayette around $35,000, took it from their response, and we wound up doing something where we could hire some help here in Judice and one person in Dusong.
Two in Milton.
So we've tried to get volunteers here, we've tried to get some type of payment plan going and try to attract, and it was going okay, but then we had to take it right back, and we had to cut it, and
So 18-19, which the budget we just got adopted, we took a 25% cut across the board. Broussard, Carencro, Scott, Dusong, Youngsville will go from 56,000 to 42,000. Milton, Judice is going to go from 98,000 to 72,000. Their money, that 72,000, is a combination of their paid staff for payroll that LCG gives them to have a part-time person to work at the station during the daytime hours when volunteers are not available. So they're gonna go, they had $48,000 for staffing. That's gonna go down to 33,000, which equates to 16.9 hours a week for two people. 16 hours a week cannot cover all your day shifts for a whole week, even if you have one person here at a time. So the struggle is there, and these are the things that are just coming to light. The reduction in staffing with this cut, this is something that we're going to start seeing moving forward. It started on November 1st, so we're a couple of weeks into it.
so the irony, you're talking about the split of the council and all that. Why should I vote to split? Let me tell you what came down. The budget came down to the council members, myself and others, that the mayor president said, look, if you support this budget right here, they're gonna take a 25% cut. But in that budget was basically, you have to go ahead and support the city of Lafayette buying the Buchanan parking garage for $700,000. It's closed, it's falling apart. So what happens if we don't vote to let the city of Lafayette buy that parking garage? Oh, it's very simple. You gotta come back and cut the parish by $700,000. Really? I only got $100,000 in the bank. So $700,000. Guess where the first place the cut was coming? It was gonna be zero, because we needed to balance the budget. So we'd have saved $440,000. They would have gotten zero. We had to make a decision within a week and a half. We had to have a mandatory meeting on November 1st. If we are out of compliance, everyone from the administration and council members are malfeasance in office. Because you have to have a balanced budget by November 1st. Why I bring up the split? Let me tell you the position I was in. I represent 85% of the rural area. 10% of the, 15% of the city of Lafayette. So I gotta wear two hats. As a business person, I don't care if Lafayette has $40 million in the bank. Does it make it right for the city of Lafayette to pick up the slack on the parish and pay $700,000 for a parking garage that is out of compliance, is closed, doesn't make any revenue? I thought the city of Lafayette was making a bad buy because none of us in this room would pay $700,000 for a parking garage that only makes $40,000 a year and is deemed like very dangerous, like it collapse. But on the flip side, as a parish guy, hell, I don't want to cut my fire department. I don't want my constituents to have to face a class 6 or higher. I don't want to have to send people home. Well, hell, what do I do? So guess what I did? I voted for the city of Lafayette to pick up the $700,000. Right or wrong, either way you vote on that, it's tough. Because if I'm representing the city of Lafayette, that's a bad move to buy that parking garage for $700,000. It's a bad move. I wouldn't want the parish to buy it from the city for $700,000. So that's why it's a conflict of interest in the current government we have. There's no way Kevin Nakian should be voting on a city issue when my representation is 85% unincorporated. That's what I face every day. So with the fire department, I sided as a parish guy and said, nope, I'm selling it to the city of Lafayette. So in the last hour, we almost had to cut this. The slide was almost going to be taken out because they were going to get 0. So what happened was we basically got to the school board, we asked them to rerun the sales tax numbers, and they found out that some of the businesses were reporting their sales tax revenue to the wrong town. So when they did the audit, they came back and said, oh, well, your budget, you don't have to cut $700,000 anymore. Now you're down to $256,000. All right. So then what we did was we made a motion to sell that parking garage to the public or a private entity. The city of Lafayette's not buying it, the parish ain't keeping it, we're gonna put it out for bid, and we put a line item for $500,000. With that, by doing that, showing intent, we got 1 year to sell that parking garage. Now that saved the $700,000 cut. So today we're able to keep the $42,000 intact. But that goes to show you the situation that we're in, that had the sales tax revenue didn't come in like it did, let's say if it would have stayed at $700,000, we would have been in a bond because we didn't have the votes. The city council members voted not to buy it for $700,000. The parish guy said, yeah, take it, because we don't want to have to cut $700,000. So when you think about that charter split, and you think about that those are just some instances. The LUS issue.
But it's just so long and so complex.
It's very difficult. So we saved the 700. We didn't have to cut. That's where we at today. We saved it. So here's where the money's gonna go.
So when we came up with this plan, they asked us to put together a budget, a tentative budget of how we would spend the money to better the rating or keep it, in a 5 or possibly into a 4. And this is where we went with it.
And it was based off of those recommendations, remember 2013? So we had a study guide. We had a plan in front of us that showed us what we needed to invest in order to get a better rating. And that's where he's going with it.
So the first item we put operations. We know departments are struggling with paying insurance. I know some of the insurances range from 30-something thousand a year on up.
Troy, what's your insurance and Judice?
33,000. Remember, a couple slides back, we're gonna give him, I wanna say it's 30-something thousand,
33.
30, is it 33?
Mhm.
To operate. So he's gonna pay his insurance and that's it. Ain't nothing else. Can't pay the diesel in the trucks, can't do nothing else. Pay his insurance and
You understand that? The current format, they getting $33,000 for operation. That's just
that's gonna
paying
go to
the insurance bill, period. That's nothing for volunteers, that's nothing for paid call, that is nothing for equipment, that is, LCG just paid the insurance, thank you very much. That's it.
So what we'll do in operations is we can give each department 30,000, all 7 departments 30,000 for their insurance. That's gonna help pay insurance. It's not gonna pay some departments all of their insurance, but it'll pay majority. Maintenance and repairs, we're gonna give each department 20,000 to help with the maintenance and repairs. Is 20,000 gonna cover all their maintenance and repairs for 1 year? It definitely won't cover mine on the parish trucks. So, but it will assist these departments with doing a lot of their repairs and maintenance as well.
So the first two parts, operation and equipment, when they got together, was to take care of the things that they need. It was not necessarily gonna take care of the rating on those two categories, other than some of the equipment they'll get credit for, but the main thing that we're fighting is their operations are eating them alive and their equipment. We could have probably proposed even higher, but again, we're not trying to go for we're trying to do right. We're not asking the voters to come spend arm and a leg on something. We want the right quality of life, but could we have asked for more? Absolutely. But we know that personnel and response is where we're gonna get the biggest bang for our buck. Training, number one, and what you said, training and personnel.
Yeah.
That's where your biggest points, your biggest grades are.
So the next category is equipment. We know we have aging tankers that are 20 years old. A lot of departments, their parish apparatus that they use to, the pumper that they use is usually about the same age. So we needed to tackle how we would start a process to replace these apparatus. And what we came up with is each department in the parish is required to respond with a tanker and 2 pumpers within the unincorporated area. So it's 3 trucks. So we came up with a program that we would pay a stipend per truck per year, which each department will get $60,000 a year. With that $60,000, they can start upgrading equipment. They can, you can finance the truck and pay a note every year and pay it off in a few years and move on to the next one. So it'll start a replacement program where they can get rid of these outdated equipment. Once you get rid of these outdated equipment, your repair costs will come down. So hopefully they'll come down to where $20,000 will cover all their maintenance. But
Again,
it's a start.
This is a start. This is not like set in stone that every dollar amount is going there, but this is a plan on where we intend to go with it.
The next category is response. Currently, under the current rules, everybody gets a flat rate for responding to calls in the parish. It's 30-something thousand now, 46,000 for the responding to calls. Well, we know some departments are making 500 calls, some departments are making 200. So we're going to do a sliding scale. From 0 to 200, you'll get 40,000 for your response.
That's where Broussard and Youngsville will fall into.
2 to 5, 50,000.
That's gonna be pretty much everybody.
Everybody else will probably fall in that category.
Other than
Scott may fall in the 5 to 7 because they run a little over 500 parish calls a year, so they'll probably fall there. Lafayette also responds to a lot of parish calls.
Pro
believe
Ridge
it or not.
Highlight, unincorporated area,
But we have to give Lafayette some, a piece of the pie because they can't legally operate outside the city for free. So we have to include them in there. We're not including them in every category. We're only including them in a couple of categories to make it legal.
So to keep,
That's gonna pay for investigation and communication too.
Correct.
right.
We rely on if we need them to respond, they come, okay? Was that call last night your call, Troy?
It's up in the air.
It's up in the air? Okay. They send hazmat, we need an aerial from the city, they send it. Whatever we need from the city, they send it. So that's where that money is being utilized in. It's well worth the money in our aspect to give them a cut in the services they do provide to help us.
So to keep in mind on the equipment, someone asked at one of the other meetings, so we're not gonna store our parish equipment. Where's our rural fire district equipment gonna go? It's gonna go in those volunteer departments to be used strictly for calls in our area. They can't take our parish equipment and go put out a fire on Broussard. Okay, so the recommendation of 15 stations, that's crazy. It would have taken so much money to do that, it's unrealistic. So we're partnering and using the same system and relying on the volunteer departments and those fire stations within the municipalities and relying on Judice and Milton to store parish equipment. So that's one thing you have to make sure you understand. Currently, our budget for all of the fire department is roughly between 400 and 500,000, and that's all they get. So basically, they were getting response only. They weren't getting anything really for operations or anything for equipment for the last 5, 6 years.
The next category is where a majority of the money goes, but it's also where the majority of the points for the rating will get gained from. It's also the part that will help the fire departments the most, and that's personnel. So for each department, Carencro, Broussard, Carencro, Doosan, Scott, Youngsville, they will get one part-time position, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They can staff that with as many people as they need to fill all those spots, but it's part-time position around the clock. So they'll have one person on staff from the parish around the clock, part-time. Judice and Milton, they will get 2 people, 24/7, 365. So where you have, currently, you may have a person here a few hours during the day, no one here on nights and weekends. With this plan, you'll have 2 people at every station in, well, I didn't say every station, in Judice and Milton around the clock all year long. And that'll be made up of part-time people, but the payroll will be there. They'll get $280,000 and some change to put a paid staff part-time around the clock. Okay. That's where we'll get the majority of the money, and that's about 1.2 million just to do that. Our support personnel, when they asked us to put this budget together, we had to take everything that was in the parish fire line item budget and roll it over, because if it passes, we're gonna be self-sufficient. We're not gonna need sales tax money in the general fund to fund fire service. We'll be
So
self-sufficient.
what does that mean for the parish? If this were to pass, you're gonna free up $450,000 to $500,000 in the parish general fund. So what that means is the fund balance I got of 100,000, parish is gonna gain some money in the general fund, which that is what allows us to help pave some roads, to help go do some projects, okay, some cleaning. So by this passing, our area will be self-sufficient forever, okay? The other question you should ask, and you asked a good question, what happens if you got annexed in the city of Lafayette?
Ask me that question again?
When you said, you asked me whether I get annexed in the city of Lafayette, or
Yeah.
right? So the misinformation that someone's gonna try to say about this plan is that as you get annexed, we're gonna just keep having all this pile of money sitting there left over as people get annexed. That is false. False, false, false. Why? Because if you get annexed into the city of Lafayette, we're no longer gonna collect your property tax.
Yeah.
And we no longer have to respond to your house. You will be subject to whatever the fire rating is of the new town you're annexed in. Okay? So as people get annexed, that 3.9 million that is gonna generate is gonna come down and decrease, but the services required for our area is also gonna come down. so it's a wash. It's never gonna sit with, as you get annexed, you're not paying the property tax, and now you're going into the city of Lafayette. So that pot of money is gonna be down as people get annexed. But the services and the fire rating will have enough money to keep up, because then the unincorporated areas won't have to have so much points in order, and so much equipment to maintain the 70,000 people we have in unincorporated areas.
Is that what we have now, 70,000?
7,000 people in the unincorporated areas right now. So the next category is support personnel. Currently, our budget pays for half the salary of a communications person that takes care of all of our dispatching. They also take care of some of the Lafayette stuff, but we pay half their salary. They also pay half the salary of an arson investigator. Anytime we have a fire that we need an investigator to come out to do calls and origin, they come out. Okay, so we pay half their salary. We also have a clerk that works to put together paperwork, to keep up with the rating, to keep up with the calls that the fire departments are billing, things of that nature. So her salary is about $20,000 a year.
And where do you get that arson investigator? From where?
Lafayette.
From
Yeah,
Lafayette?
we pay half. We're already paying this. This $80,000 is already in our budget. The parish government is paying half the salary of an arson investigator, a communications person, and the clerk to respond, to help in the parish. So all we did was move it from the general fund to our own dedicated funding. So that's where that comes from. We said earlier we needed to increase volunteers. One of the ways that some departments have implemented, and we've seen some improvement, or it's worked, is doing a paid-on-call program where a fireman is paid a stipend to respond to calls. So what we're going to do is we allocated money for each department to put a paid-on-call program into place so that they can start giving their personnel a stipend for responding to calls. And that should help with recruitment and retention. We do it in Broussard currently. At first, we've seen a huge increase in recruitment, but that's kind of slowed down a little bit. But more importantly, I've seen a retention. The guys I do have, I'm able to retain them because we make like, once they're certified, they make $25 a call. Well, if they respond to X amount of calls a month, they might make $200-300 a month. That pays their gas, that pays their expenses, etc. So it's worked. So we're going to implement that parish-wide.
You don't realize how bad volunteers are needed. Take those fires in California, you see all these people, right? If something like that were to happen here, we're in a bind. We're in a very, very big bind, because we don't have the volunteer base and we don't have the firemen that we need. So when I looked at that, I said definitely there needs to be some type of incentive to get local people back into the volunteer fire departments. And the main thing though, again, all of that's gonna have to be accountable to the council. You can't we're not just gonna cut a check for $50,000 and not ask for where it's going. We're gonna ask you, where you at year to date on paying? Who's this money going to? Everything is gonna have to be dot the I's and cross the T's. Because I'm not coming out here and I'm not gonna push for something that I believe in and get the money and just turn my head and let it go. Now, once I'm out of office, whoever you put in after me, that's a different story. But my obligation and what I want to do, if this were to pass, is to make sure that every resident in the Judice area, all over the parish, knows where the money's going, making sure that they're responding, making sure that the volunteers are
Doing what we're supposed to do for the rating.
Paid what they're supposed to. You gotta have accountability. You cannot just pass this thing and do what we used to do, which is just write checks. We write check here. Keep our class rating out of 5. There was no one going in saying, well, what are we doing here with this money? What are we doing here with that? With this fire district and this board, every fire department is gonna be under the council. Gotta have some guidance.
But again, with that, every fire department has its own special bylaws. I'm still torn on that. Who restricts that?
You can't operate if you don't have no money.
What's that?
You can't operate if we pull all the money from you.
Right, so.
So
we
you're
just
gonna
passed
abide by the
tax.
rules, which the rules will be in our contract when you sign. You'll sign stating you agree to all this, and you're gonna do what you need to do for the rating. And if you don't, then we're gonna pull your funding, and we'll get somebody to do it. So we'll make sure that everything for the rating, everything to protect the citizens in those areas are taken care of.
Look, half of these volunteers, you're operating without a contract right now, right? Okay? That's how crazy it is, because the funding hasn't been there. But if this tax passes, everybody's coming to the table. And we're gonna draw up contracts that everybody's
That's what I was
playing by the
asking,
same
you know, we're
rules.
gonna draw up a contract and make
Yes.
them.
And it will be
So
very
like, let's just take
detailed.
Judice, if something happens here, another department takes over, but that department has to come from afar away, they're not just gonna come and take over the
Correct.
station.
Right.
So that puts us even, you know what I'm saying, like that,
And that's
so
where, you
something
know,
like that has to be put
the,
into effect on.
it'll be into, you know, we'll put all the details into the new contracts.
Main
If this
thing is to
happens
get the
pass.
turnout, to educate the people, and hopefully the unincorporated area sees the importance of this. And then after December 8th, that's when the real stuff starts happening, where we basically start the contracts and we start saying, hey, we start putting that plan into play. And everybody, from Troy to Chad to Brown, everybody's gonna have to come once a month and say, hey, how we doing, where we at, you know, there's gonna be accountability. You have to. You can't just turn $3.9 million, turn it loose, and write checks and say, well, have fun. You know, you can't do that.
So by contract, you're talking about the integrity and the value and quality of the services provided.
Absolutely.
Everybody's going to have to be on the same page
Correct.
regardless of what
Yeah.
volunteer department you're
Yeah.
with.
Correct.
If we set a plan on how you need to hire that volunteer to cover so many hours and get the best bang for the buck, there's gonna be something in place that you gotta do.
I just have a question for you. When is the last time the firemen that are full-time have gotten cost of living pay increase?
The Lafayette guys?
I'm talking about any of y'all. Do y'all have anybody that's full-time on staff?
Not on staff.
And so this will actually allow
This will
somebody
put-
to be in your facility to notify these people. And
Correct.
so that's what's so
Yeah.
important with this millage.
You'll have personnel on duty at the station around the clock.
Okay.
So the Parish Association fees are $15,000, tower fees $6,000, insurance. Here's the main goal. You should ask me, wait, the millage is gonna produce 3.9 million. You just proposed a plan that's 2.9. What you doing with $1 million left over, right? $1 million question, right?
Investing.
I think I'm gonna go fishing, I'm gonna buy me another can. No.
Can I go?
Yeah.
I'm coming.
You know, and I'm not a good fisher, but
Or notch two.
yeah. No, remember that slide that we went back and they said you needed 15 stations? What we wanna do with that money is set aside for capital. So keep in mind, by government rules, for every $1 million you have in fund balance reserve, you can go and bond out $10 million. Every million, you can bond out 10, okay? We know that PIL can change the rules at any given time. We know we need capital. But the thing that I strongly believe that we will be able to do with that money is bond it out and find us some land in the rural area between Austin, wherever the most calls are coming, wherever it may be. And that's gonna have to go through a committee and find out where's the right place for this new fire station. But one needs to be built in an unincorporated area. And you have to staff it, you have to equip it, you have to man it. So a lot of that leftover money is gonna be utilized for those future improvements. If there's somebody in an unincorporated area that wants to donate the land, that's even great. If not, then we have to buy the land. But that's why you will have $1 million surplus. Don't let the newspaper articles, don't let the naysayers say we're creating this big slush fund we don't need that $1 million. That plan right there, if we don't have that extra $1 million, we cutting it that close. And I'm sorry. If you're gonna go for something and you're gonna improve your community, you can't just put a Band-Aid on it. You have to project the future and you have to plan ahead, because guess what? You might not have another council that has the, you know what, to bring it to the voters. Because everybody's scared. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. If it affects the community and it affects our lives and our quality of life, I think you need to be in this room, and I think you need to understand. It's not about a Democrat or a Republican. It's about doing what's right. And what's right is when your community is affected, or potentially they don't have a fire department to show up, then you have to let your citizens vote on that. Denying you a vote December 8th is not the American way. Okay, so that extra $1 million needs to be planned for the future. Capital, new fire station, or anything else that comes out of what we need.
So this proposal is from here on to eternity, there's no time limit.
There's no time. This tax
It's for 10
is
years.
for 10 years.
That's what I was gonna ask, what's the
It's
time
10
frame of
years.
this?
It's
So
a
is
10
that
years.
time frame of this millage enough to pay in full, because you said a note?
Locations and-
And so my concern is, if you're buying all this equipment and you're gonna have a note, a monthly note to pay this stuff, will this millage be able to cover the completion of paying off these notes for the new equipment that y'all need?
Yes, because in the next 10 years, annexation is what? Probably still gonna happen, right?
Okay.
As it happens, that's less needed to serve the unincorporated area, okay? And that means it's less money, so it's gonna be a wash.
It'll balance.
It's gonna balance itself out. As people get annexed, that's less tax money, but that's less demands or
I just
services
wanna,
that you
I
got.
just wanted to make sure that it was enough time frame to be able to pay off the notes that you're gonna
Yeah. And
accumulate.
like I said, if we bond out, that saves us from spending the capital, right? Because you have $1 million left over for every year. So in 2 years, you might have 2 million. So we could choose to do that or just bond it out and get the projects and equipment faster to improve the rating.
Okay.
If we just sit on that $1 million and buy a little bit at a time, we're not gonna get a good, improvement on the rating. You bond it out, and you got $10 million, and you say you really only need, you're allowed to spend 10, but you only spend 2, and you start, it'll advance you longer. It's kinda like, why use your money, use the bank's money first, as long as you got the money to pay the note, that's all that matters. But to answer your question, I think the 10 years will be very fun. I
It'll
think
be
it'll be
sufficient.
sufficient. Yes, I'm gonna go each table and get to the back.
Do you research for sales tax?
Yes,
And I don't know.
not enough money to
There's
generate.
not enough businesses in the parish to generate enough sales tax.
Hey, here's one thing I'll share with you. Tat Conrad sent. Out of 64 parishes, how many parishes do you think has a rural fire tax, a rooftop tax, or a fire millage parish-wide?
I have no idea.
How many do you think doesn't have that out of 64?
Us.
6 or 7.
There's 7 parishes. So it means out of 64, there's 7 parishes that are not having the adequate millage to fund their fire department. So it's not something new. The other thing was we did a comparison on what are these other parishes, what's the millage set at? Some towns, the millage is at 17 mills. Some of them are at 6, some of them are at 9. So we found that the 10 mills was very fair based on our parish size and was gonna get the job done. But don't let nobody fool you. Lafayette is one of 7 that has never done anything for dedicated funding for parish fire protection. We have a chance December 8th to be in the same group of other good parishes that have fire protection. Cadia Parish has a rooftop tax. So for every house, they pay a tax for fire protection, okay? Well, we looked into that. The millage is the most dedicated and most sustainable deal. With a sales tax, what happens with a sales tax? Sounds great, oh, everybody pays. Ain't nobody driving around here to buy nothing, okay? A sales tax is based on the economy. So if the economy's tanking, you're too volatile. It's not sustainable enough. You know, we take a big hit in the industry and then all of a sudden you count on the sales tax revenue and all of a sudden it goes to the floor. You know, we don't want to be in that situation where we're subject to the economy. You know, but a millage is the most safest, is dedicated, is protected, and based upon our needs, 10 mills is very fair and in some cases is a lot less than some of these other parishes. Some of them are 17 mills, huh? Look, you got it right now. Okay, so Caldwell
Highlighted in
Parish,
yellow is who is the parishes who don't have.
yeah, the ones that say yellow and say 0, that's the parishes that don't have any fire protection.
Lafayette, Plaquemine, St. John, Vernon, West Baton Rouge, and West Carroll. That's it. Everybody else has a dedicated fire prevention.
Okay, so don't let nobody think that, oh, they're trying to pass this new thing and this is crazy. Who else has it? Everybody else has it but us and 6 others.
Some parishes have up to 110 meals,
How does that equate to dollars?
125 meals.
Right there.
That's what this is.
Okay.
125 meals is 168 meals.
Again, that's based on the parish it's based on the population. Okay. We know that 10 meals in our area is gonna produce 3.9 million. So it ranges. So to answer your question, we looked at a sales tax. We looked at a parish-wide millage. That wasn't gonna work. So the only suggestion or thought that we had was this solution. You know? We've asked around. Now, some other parishes you'll see have 5 districts. Fire District 1, 2, 5. We're not doing that. We're doing an unincorporated rural area fire district, all inclusive of 1. 7 volunteers make up all 5